Cold War, third month. Ethan ran into me at the mall with his girlfriend. If you want to be angry, take it out on me, don't bully the poor girl. He put the girl behind him, convinced I would throw the same hysterical fit as before. But 3 months was enough time for a burning heart to cool into ash. The 7 trips to the emergency room from our fights had already drained every last ounce of my strength. So this time I said, let's get a divorce. Honestly, you two make a pretty good match. Ethan's face went ashen on the spot. Wendy, say that again if you dare, I'll jump off right here and now. On the 3rd day after Ethan was beaten, I went to the hospital holding a large bouquet of white chrysanthemums. When I reached the ward door, a girl was cuddling him and sobbing softly. It was that old woman who hit you, wasn't it? How could she hit you, and hit so hard, why didn't you fight back? I'll avenge you, whoever dares hurt you, I'll take them on. The young girl's crying was pure and moving, her nose even turning pink. Ethan immediately drew her into his arms and soothed her in a low, gentle voice. Watching them getting closer and closer, I kicked the door open expressionlessly, surprise. The ambiguous atmosphere evaporated, and the person who had just sworn to get revenge had already slipped into a corner. Ethan hugged at empty air, leaned against the headboard, and looked at me with displeasure. Wendy, even if you're coming to sign the discharge papers, next time could you at least knock first? He reached out indulgently and pulled the trembling woman back onto the bed. Tina's timid, if you scare her, I'll have to sing lullabies all night again, it's rough on my throat. I glanced at Tina, who was pouting and sniffling. 3 months ago, she had been rejected when applying for an internship. Somehow she found out I was the company's vice president and deliberately blocked me in the parking lot. She came in and immediately dropped to her knees, saying her parents were gravely ill and her sister was born with a disability, begging me to give her another chance. I wanted to call security to throw her out, but because I noticed reporters lurking around the corner I casually tossed her a job instead. Thinking back now, I was careless. I should have grabbed her by the hair and slapped her twice. I'm ashamed of myself and my Taekwondo black belt for not doing it. With Ethan backing her, Tina grew restless. How dare you call me timid? Humph, I'll show you. She snatched the bouquet of white chrysanthemums, hurled it to the floor, and stomped on it in a rage. How dare you bring such unlucky flowers to a patient, what a heart of a viper, utterly vicious. You bad woman, do you know how badly you beat Ethan? He needed 30 stitches, has to take a painkiller every 2 hours, and when it hurts the worst he can't even eat. I curse you every time you step outside. An opportunity this good shouldn't be wasted. I grabbed her ponytail and slapped her across the face. Before she could react I struck again, alternating sides, 2 rounds of smack, smack. After the whole operation, Tina's delicate, innocent-looking makeup was more than half ruined and her hair was an utter mess. She covered her face and finally burst into loud sobs. Wah wah wah, Ethan, she bullied me. Wendy, don't go too far. Ethan glared at me, holding a tissue to wipe her tears. We agreed, husband and wife grievances are to be handled privately, no third parties involved. He took a deep breath. I don't want to get physical. You apologize to Tina, and we'll drop it. Bang. I lifted my high heel and kicked the chair by his bed to splinters, sneering, Ethan, did you forget how you ended up in the hospital? Don't blame me for being violent. This time he deserved to be beaten into a hospital. Last week was Tina's birthday, and without asking me he let her take the vase I had on the windowsill. By the timing of my business trip, I would have found out about it in a few days. But that day, dragging my suitcase home, I happened to run into him coming out of the bathroom. Seeing me staring at the empty windowsill in a daze, he frowned, thought for a moment, then said, don't look for it. I gave that vase to Tina. I sat down on the sofa with shaking hands, fishing out a cigarette and a lighter. I held back, then asked him anyway, there were so many things in the wardrobe that could be given away. Why did you have to let her take that vase? That one. Ethan paused in the middle of rubbing his head, casually lifting his eyelid. The little girl gets jealous. She knew that thing was our token, so she had to smash it herself to feel better. He stared at the cigarette that hadn't been lit for a long time, cruelly mocking my trembling hands, and sneered, "Look at you. I've given you so many jewelry pieces from auctions, why fuss over a $20 vase?" I stared at him, watching his breathing. His chest heaved violently. It was a clear sign of respiratory alkalosis about to set in. After 5 years of countless fights, he always knew exactly how to push my buttons. But that time, it still wasn't enough for him. He even pulled out his phone and aimed it at me. "Baby, look, this time your sister-in-law is almost dumbstruck with anger. Don't wrongfully blame me for touching." I said, "Ethan, you deserve to die." Not giving him a chance to dodge, I grabbed the ashtray beside me and hurled it straight at his head. Ethan, of course, wasn't willing to be outdone. By the time his secretary arrived with an ambulance, he had me pinned to the sofa, choking me until I nearly passed out. If they hadn't broken the door down in time, I have no doubt we would have both been finished that night. Luckily, after that fight my neck only bore a ring of bruises. Ethan, however, not only suffered a concussion but also had a deep gash at the back of his head. He couldn't even sleep lying flat. I hadn't intended to go see him. Just the thought of seeing those two wrapped up in each other, all lovey-dovey, made my stomach churn. Of all things, the day after Ethan's accident my assistant dug up evidence that Tina had bribed reporters to stake out me. Since she hooked up with Ethan, she hadn't missed a single chance to show off. At first she hid underwear in his passenger seat, later she started sending post-coital photos with Ethan directly to my phone. The latest one popped up just as Ethan's secretary came to fetch me for discharge paperwork. Staring at that defiant face lying beneath Ethan, I smiled and pressed the gas pedal all the way down. Before this, I had indeed reached a tacit agreement with him to settle our marital grievances privately. But among all of Ethan's lovers, Tina was the first to have the nerve to dance right in my face. So it suited me to settle both new and old scores at once. It was convenient, at least. A pity I still couldn't add another wound to Ethan. The commotion in the ward got so loud it drew the floor nurse. There was no way I was going to apologize. My limit was simply not making trouble for the medical staff. As soon as I stepped out, the secretary waiting in the corridor came up with a pre-printed report in hand. "Please calm down. If that doesn't work, you can hit me. Mr. Ethan really can't take it." As Ethan's confidant, this person was always good at yielding to gain the upper hand. I frowned, signed the papers with practiced movements, and turned to leave. The VIP ward in the international department and the marital/affair rumors were in full bloom. Nearly everyone along the way shot me gossiping glances. While waiting for the elevator, the expected whispers rose from behind. "It's been less than 2 months, why is Wendy back in the hospital again? Isn't it just the usual filthy business of the rich?" The two of them get into a fight and start getting physical. By now they're regulars in this building. "Ha, look at how puffed up she is." Ethan even openly brought his lover into the ward. What's the point of trying to show off the rightful wife status? Don't even talk. I actually used to ship that wedding back in the day. At the time they were so saccharine you could taste it. No idea how it ended up like this. I lowered my eyes, my fingers digging into my palms. The wedding between Ethan and me 6 years ago was still preserved in the newspapers. The decor had been so lavish and romantic it topped the trending lists for a long time. Tens of thousands of acres of iris flown in from southern France for the venue were once criticized by the media as extravagant waste. No one knew that Ethan had stubbornly refused the wedding planner and flown to the estate himself to choose them. He insisted on personally approving everything, from the typeface on the invitations to the patterns on the plates and even the way the ribbons were tied on the backs of each guest's chair. To the outside world, perhaps it was seen merely as a grand wedding of two lovers in a wealthy family. But few people understood the frost, wind, and snow we endured to get to this point, what Ethan and I went through to reach here. Although we were born into prominent families and grew up as childhood sweethearts, as the fake daughter discovered only at 18 and the illegitimate son who could never be acknowledged, our relationship was always out of our control. The day I was handed over as a bargaining chip to a partner with perverse tastes, Ethan almost lost half his life trying to help me escape. It was his voluntary renunciation of any claim to the inheritance that finally got the Zhou family to arrange protection for us. But that was all they did. To avoid bringing trouble upon themselves, both families severed ties and drove Ethan and me out that very night. Once our funding was completely cut off, even survival became the toughest problem. During the harshest winter, we huddled for warmth in a leaking basement. Ethan's leg was the worst injured. Without painkillers he couldn't sleep at all. I couldn't bear to see him suffer. He worked 4 jobs a day. In the daytime he put on a mascot costume to dance and hand out flyers. At night, after finishing his shift making milk tea, he still ran ride-hailing gigs. Some of the part-time places provided meals, so I would just take 1 bite of the plain rice and pack the rest to bring to Ethan. I thought life would go on like that forever, until I was hit by a drunk driver. To hush things up, the other party gave me 50,000 yuan. Coincidentally, around that time the export trade industry was booming. With that money we moved out of the basement, rented a small studio, and started a business. Ethan's innate business sense paired with my fluent foreign languages, as orders steadily increased, life actually began to get better day by day. Later, we founded our own company. Later still, the head of the Zhou family passed away and Ethan was called back. After surviving countless trials, he finally seized power and took his position. When he was 25, he rented every LED screen in the city and played fireworks for a whole month to announce our wedding. The moment he lifted my veil, Ethan's eyes were wet with tears and his voice choked. "Wendy, in this life, aside from you, I no longer have the strength to fall in love with anyone else. Vows are always beautiful, but reality turns its face without mercy." No one expected that on our 6th anniversary, the one who casually gave away the vase of our love token was Ethan himself. Ding, the elevator gave a clear arrival chime. I wiped the corner of my eye with my hand and walked out calmly. I drove the car back home. No sooner had I stepped through the door than my phone started buzzing nonstop. The message was from Ethan's secretary, essentially saying Ethan was taking Tina out to relax for a while and wouldn't be returning to the villa for the time being. Before I could reply, another image arrived from the other side, a check for 20 million and an English location. I sent back a single question mark. The secretary's tone was very polite. "Mr. Ethan says Miss Tina has been wronged and doesn't want to see you for the time being. He hopes that even if you travel abroad recently, you will avoid encountering her as much as possible." I glanced at that location and my heart slowly sank. Santiago's Starfall Bay, the best spot in South America to watch meteor showers. Rumor had it that vows sworn there would be witnessed by the stars and blessed by the cosmos, eternal and unending. When the company was founded, Ethan proposed to me here. Over the years he's had countless lovers. But even in his wildest excesses, he never once took another woman to Starfall Bay. I stood pacing with my phone in hand until I sat down on the couch, expertly lighting a cigarette for myself. The mint-flavored smoke mixed with the cool air. When it hit my lungs it sent a prickling ache all the way to my heart. Smoke rings spread like mist, and layer upon layer of bitter memories rose up with them. The day I first discovered Ethan's infidelity, I bought myself a pack of cigarettes for the first time. Unfamiliar with it, I took 1 puff and was immediately choked into coughing. I clapped my hand over my mouth and fell onto the bed, crying as I stared at the photos the private detective had sent. I couldn't understand why, just after landing a major international project, Ethan seemed like a different person. Going along quietly has never been my style. Even if Ethan hadn't been the one sent off for that arranged marriage, I would have fought to the death with the other party using the knife I'd hidden in my clothes. So I found him, confronted him, even convinced myself in advance that he might have some hardship to explain. I never expected that Ethan would admit it so openly. That day was the first time Ethan and I came to blows. In the heat of the argument, the thick stack of photos I hurled cut across his forehead, half his face immediately gushed blood. I reflexively reached for 911, but Ethan pressed my hand hard and shoved it up against his brow bone. "Come on, hit it here, anyway these days young girls all like a broken brow." After that incident, Ethan became even more wanton. At some point, going to the hospital became a routine between us. A friend who couldn't stand it came over to advise me, if he's going to see you anyway, why not each do their own thing? It's better than tormenting each other. But I'm not him. I can't make love with a lover on a marital bed, my heart still keeps its loyalty to the family. This has nothing to do with sulking at Ethan, I simply cannot persuade myself to cross that moral barrier. By the time I realized I'd finished my cigarette, it was completely dark. A travel blogger's live stream link popped up on my usual social app. For reasons I couldn't explain, I clicked it. As a professional blogger, their framing was nearly perfect. Even through the screen, I could take in the meteor shower that was about to begin in the distance. When the first meteor tore across the sky, the tourists around let out a chorus of exclamations. Hearing the vlogger mention the romantic legend of Starfall Bay, the crowd closed their eyes to make wishes. Suddenly, an unusually excited female voice drowned out the commentary and crashed into my ear. My wish is, I hope Ethan keeps every promise he makes to me. At the edge of the frame, familiar male and female figures were caught off guard by the camera. On screen, Tina smiled sweetly and, feeling bold, coquettishly pestered the man opposite her, like tomorrow you'll take me diving, the day after that you'll go buy me that bracelet I liked, the day after that, well, just always be this good to me, and don't you dare find me annoying. She paused for a moment, sniffed, oh right, and the most important thing is, may that old witch who's always bullying Ethan disappear completely, so we can be together openly and proudly. Her words had barely fallen. She tilted her head back, eyes full of expectation as she met Ethan's gaze. Before he could respond, she couldn't help sneezing. Idiot, I told you it's going to be cold tonight. I watched Ethan sigh as he took off his coat and draped it over Tina. Insisting on looking fashionable and wearing so little, you're just going to catch a cold. Humph, that's only because you gave it to me. Tina stood on tiptoe, grabbing his collar, her eyes sly. I may have just graduated, but don't think I don't know, when a man gives a woman a dress, it means he wants to. Ethan didn't give her the chance to finish. He bent his head. Under the deep night sky, meteors fell like a waterfall. Amid the dazzling expanse, they kissed fervently. It was clearly a beautiful scene, yet no matter how I looked at it, it was unbearably jarring. The antique wall clock struck 12. I ended the livestream and went to the bathroom to wash up. The moment my foot hit the carpet, a sharp sting shot through the soul. Bending down to look, I found a shard of glass left from the ashtray smashed during our last argument. What Ethan never knew was that my sudden appearance that day came after a week of frantic overtime. I had taken a red-eye flight back from abroad overnight. Only because in the hardest times we once promised that no matter what misfortunes the future might bring, or what irreconcilable conflicts might arise between us. As long as on the 6th anniversary Ethan and I were both still alive and well in this world, we would find each other and unconditionally reconcile. Even though before that, we had countless times wounded each other to the bone with the most vicious words. I still held a sliver of hope, hoping we could sit down calmly and talk it out. But when I got home that day, Ethan was leaning in the doorframe, taking in my pale face, a cold smile full of derision on his lips. Looking at you in such a sorry state, you wouldn't seriously have rushed back just to spend our anniversary with me, would you? That single sentence shut every retort I had ready right back down. In that instant I knew with absolute clarity that Ethan and I could never go back to the way we used to be. The wound on the sole of my foot still throbbed. I braced myself against the wall, found the tweezers and alcohol in the medicine box, and expressionlessly plucked the shard of glass embedded in the flesh. Over the years I had become quite practiced at treating my own injuries. The living room spotlight was on bright, and the blood-streaked sliver of glass caught a pretty gleam. I stared at it blankly for a while. Suddenly it felt like the bond between Ethan and me was exactly like that smashed ashtray. After an outburst of anger there was nothing left but a mess strewn across the floor. Onlookers assumed that the reason I kept trying over and over to glue it back together after all these years was that I couldn't bear to give up the billions Ethan and I had built through our joint efforts. In truth, I was stubbornly waiting for an answer. I wanted to ask Ethan with my own mouth, 15 years since we met, 6 years married. We had so many unforgettable memories. We had been trying so hard to walk the same path together, so why did the distance between us only keep growing? But the truth is, no matter how beautiful the shards of glass might be, they're still just shards. Clinging to that pile of pieces you can never quite fit together, trapping yourself where you are, will only leave you bleeding and both of you wounded. At 7 in the morning I woke up before my alarm. I hadn't slept soundly. Half asleep and half awake, images flashed through my mind, sometimes sweet, sometimes aching. But without exception, they were all moments I had once shared with Ethan. I rubbed my tired eyes and switched on my phone. One new update after another popped up. At 2 in the morning, Tina had posted a set of selfies of the two of them. Eloping with the person I love to the Milky Way, Ethan, promise you'll still come with me for the next 10 years. Although most of the photos showed her posing with Ethan from her side only, and a few candid shots left even his face blurred, I could still, in those brief instants, clearly catch the unreserved tenderness in Ethan's expression. Under that post, Ethan had liked it. It was only when I saw that particular like that I realized he had somehow changed his profile picture to the matching couple avatar, the same one Tina was using. A pair of pink Peppa Pigs clutching stuffed toys. They looked ugly and childish. Yet they fit exactly with his lover's usual style. I silently swiped the screen, realizing that perhaps this time Ethan was truly serious. There was a knock at the front gate downstairs. Ethan's assistant messaged again. Last night Miss Tina had a sudden high fever and insisted she wanted to move into the villa after she came back. The gentleman agreed and, according to Miss Tina's tastes, purchased a batch of furniture. He asked if you could open the door and help sign for the delivery. Also, as compensation, he proposes transferring another 20% of the company's shares to you, and he said if you refuse he can add more. When we originally founded the company, my share was already larger than Ethan's. Now, with that additional 20%, it's almost like transferring the whole company into my name. Over the years, his way of compensating me has always been like this. From the jade necklace bought at an auction, to the penthouse duplex on the mid-mountain, and now to transferring shares. But I'm not a canary kept in a secluded mansion. Having come as far as I have, whether in money or power, this kind of relinquished gift no longer brings me any surprise. I put on my clothes and opened the door for the delivery workers. The boxes of packages, half a person high, were carried in one by one, and the living room filled with pink furniture that stood out conspicuously. I leaned on the railing watching them bustle about, and for a moment I was suddenly reminded of when Ethan and I had first bought this villa. We excitedly debated what color to paint the walls, picked out the European-style sofa to put in the living room, and could happily spend hours discussing even the decorative pieces for the dining table. At that time there was no chandelier yet, we made do with the moonlight pouring through the window, and in each other's gaze we imagined the future. In the dim light, in my memory, Zhou Qian's eyes smiling. They overlapped with the him in Tina's post from yesterday, strange and vividly present. The thought I had buried deep in my heart kept circling back and finally surfaced. I couldn't bear the idea of this house full of memories being marked everywhere by a third person, but neither could I bring myself to destroy with my own hands the efforts I had once poured into it. Remembering I still had a vacant detached house, I took out my phone and sent a message to my assistant. Help me book a moving company, as soon as possible. I spent a week settling into the new place. It happened to be just after the company's Q1 close. After briefing the team on the matters that needed attention, I decided to give myself an extended leave and boarded a plane to Iceland. Flights that cross regions are always long. When I woke again, the scenery had already changed. Tromsø's snow-capped mountains quietly opened their arms to me in the distance. Before the light faded, I took the cable car up to the summit. The news said that each winter here the sun briefly appears near the horizon, creating a unique blue hour. I bought a coffee at the cabin and sat on a nearby bench to wait in silence. When the company was newly founded, Ethan and I actually had many places we wanted to visit together. At one point we even printed them out and pinned an itinerary onto a foam board. It's a pity that as the business grew bigger, and he was worn out handling the Zhou family's affairs, the travel plans could only be postponed again and again. Thinking back now, maybe he wasn't that busy after all. Otherwise, how could he have, because of the small wrong Tina suffered, taken her abroad with a still unremoved suture in her wound? Night slowly fell. Unnoticed, everything around took on a faint blue-gray. I took out my camera to capture the moment, when I heard a few foreign girls nearby exclaim excitedly, "Look, that's the aurora." Almost instantly, a hazy green light appeared on the sky. Then more and more, brighter and brighter, the bands of light flowed and danced like silk stirred by the wind, and even the fjord below the mountain was wrapped in the cold glow. I tilted my head back with force, so elated that my hand trembled as I pressed the shutter. The aurora in Tromsø has always been something you can encounter but not demand. Even during the active winter season, staking out all night can easily end in disappointment. To stumble upon such a high-intensity display by chance was a delightful surprise. Back at the hotel, I began flipping through the photos I had just taken. While sorting them, I casually picked one and posted it. "Pretty lucky, saw the aurora today." A minute later, 2 new posts popped up in quick succession. The first was a fresh set of lovey-dovey photos Tina had posted. The backdrop was still the meteor shower over Stjørnsundet. The two of them had changed outfits, and the shooting style looked much more professional than yesterday. Copy: I caught a cold, but Ethan's kisses make everything better. Ethan even went out of his way to take couple photos with me to coax me into taking my medicine, unlike some people who can only surreptitiously steal pictures online. Heh, wait for us to come home and see them get furious. Stealing pictures online, was that about me? I tugged at the corner of my mouth and kept scrolling. I found that Ethan, who hadn't posted in ages, had also shared that photo set and added 2 hearts side by side. A few seconds later he pinned the post. I stared at those 2 bright red hearts for a while, expressionless, then exited the page. The most unparalleled views in this world have never been limited to the meteor shower at Shingyun Bay. A love that's been disfigured has never had only one option, either. I was on my way to New Zealand with a layover. I took some time to consult a few lawyer friends about dividing assets with Ethan. On this matter, my attitude is the same as in business. What isn't mine, I won't covet by dirty means. But if something rightfully belongs to me, I won't let others have it for free. Besides, the amount of assets under Ethan's and my names is so vast that liquidation alone will take at least a month. Now that my mind is clear and my resolve is set, it's best to prepare some things in advance. When my close friend Vivian heard the news, she sent a screenful of exclamation marks in astonishment. "Oh my ancestors, thank heaven and earth, you finally agreed to let that beast go." I smiled. I just don't want to make things harder on myself anymore. Over the years, whether it was hatred or love, I had already wasted too much time because of Ethan. Being emotionally tugged by one person every moment is exhausting. Whatever once fixed answer there had been no longer mattered to me. Rather than continue to entangle myself with him, there were many more things in life worth my energy and pursuit. The fjord parks of the Cook Mountains truly deserve their reputation as places for adult indulgence. For the next stretch of time, guided by a local tour guide, I tried almost every adrenaline-filled outdoor activity, from skydiving to jet boating to glacier climbing. Just like the psychologists said, screaming and releasing yourself during extreme sports, feeling the raw dopamine-fueled joy, is the most effective emotional venting. The long-suppressed gloom was swept away in an instant, and my condition visibly improved. The good mood lasted a long time. So much so that when Ethan called, I even answered with a smile. On the other end of the line, his tone was as brusque as ever. "Wendy, if you didn't want Tina to move in you could have said so. What's with deliberately taking the bed out of the master bedroom? Do you know that because of your stubbornness we had nowhere to sleep when we came back today?" After he finished speaking, he paused again. "I don't have time to argue with you. Give that amethyst I took pictures of for you on our first anniversary to her, and I won't pursue the matter." "You mean that, the wind by Lake now carried the scent of grass?" I stopped walking and said casually, "There were too many things when I moved last time, I probably lost it." "You moved out?" Ethan sounded choked, his voice suddenly going high. "No, how could you lose it?" "Do you know that was?" "Was what?" You were about to say you spent 50 million and bid dozens of times to get it, and that you even went to Russia to find the most experienced local craftsman to engrave both our names in it to surprise me, weren't you? I imitated his excited tone and scoffed, to be honest, those things you used to make me feel awkward just looking at them. Besides, when I moved out I lost more than one item, so why are you fussing over a mere string of crystals? The sound of heavy objects hitting the floor came in rapid succession. Ethan panted, teeth clenched, Wendy, you really outdid yourself. Let me tell you, with that attitude of yours, don't expect me to ever say a kind word to you again in this life. Who cares about your kind words? Ethan, I'm telling you, last time I let you two bitches off was because we were at the hospital. If you ever bring Tina around to harass me again, I'll smash both your heads in along with hers. When I finished, I hung up immediately. Messages popped up on my phone one after another. I didn't open them and simply added Ethan to my blacklist. That's good. Now, at last, he too felt the same anger I once felt. 3 months passed quickly. I drifted through several more countries, completely clearing my mind. Only after hearing from the lawyer that the settlement was finally done did I board the plane home. After landing, I dragged my luggage straight to the mall in the city center. Tonight was Vivian's annual birthday party. I had ordered her gift early and was only waiting to pick it up on the day I returned. A familiar saleswoman brought tea and snacks and told me that the staff had already gone to the warehouse to pack it. In less than 5 minutes, the other party returned, wearing a troubled expression. Sorry, the system shows that a customer used special connections to take the slot you had reserved. I looked up in surprise. Not far off, Tina and Chanel was linking arms with Ethan as they walked toward us. Oh, so this move was aimed at me. I had only just stood up when Ethan had already positioned himself in front of her to shield her. If you want to be angry, take it out on me, don't bully this young lady. Tina's eyes immediately reddened. Ethan, I don't want you to always stand in front of me foolishly. I'm grown now, this time it's my turn to protect you. She shoved Ethan aside, chin lifted as she came up to me. Wendy, I know you ordered this violin as a birthday present for a friend. Let Ethan go, make way for us, and I might consider letting you have it. She wore a confident little smile. Honestly, there's nothing particularly extraordinary about you. If I had been the one to suffer through hardships with him back then, the position you're in, Wendy, would be mine. What do you think you are, to even negotiate with me? I glanced at the time, forcing down the urge to slap her, and pulled out my phone to make a call. In less than a minute, a sales assistant came running over to apologize. I'm so sorry, Miss Wendy, we made a mistake. As compensation, the manager will have it delivered to the address you provided right away. I spread my hands out to the furious Tina, whose face had gone beet red. As you can see, I really don't have any special talents, just happened to have a few connections that made this shop, oh no, this entire mall, from now on refuse to serve you. Wendy, don't go too far. I rolled my wrists and walked over to Ethan, whose face had darkened. His body tensed instantly, the deep furrow between his brows screamed caution, as if he was certain I'd throw a hysterical scene like before. But this time, I calmly pulled out the documents I'd prepared long ago. Let's get a divorce, Ethan. I truly don't have the patience to go to the hospital with you for the 8th time. Seeing him silent, I shoved the papers into his hand and added, I put the property division contract after the divorce agreement. When you have time, take a look, you can trust it completely. I consulted 5 lawyers in total, so it will be fair and impartial. Ethan still stood frozen. His eyes were vacant, as if his soul had been drained out. Not wanting to miss Vivian's birthday party, I waved the gift politely but perfunctorily in front of him a couple of times. When he still showed no reaction, I lost patience entirely and turned to leave. Behind me Tina let out an uncontrollable, delighted squeal. I found it irritating and tried to quicken my pace, but someone grabbed my wrist hard. Ethan had somehow caught up. Wendy. He stared into my eyes with a ferocious gaze, his pupils bloodshot, his breathing shaking violently. It was you, clearly you who betrayed me first. You so casually asked for a divorce. I refuse. Ethan was in such a terrifying state. I shook off his hand and instinctively took a step back. I don't understand what you're talking about. I watched Ethan's expression, trying to soften my voice to calm him. I know that after all these years of clashing, suddenly bringing up a divorce is indeed something you can't accept, but now you have. Since you have a new love, you should put her feelings first in everything. Why waste time sulking with me? If you're uncomfortable, you can go back and think it over slowly. Anyway, I've already finished moving out, that place will now be completely yours and Tina's. Whenever you've made up your mind, sign up there and tell me to come handle the paperwork, and we'll part ways, each to our own, happily ever after. Part ways, each to our own, happily ever after? Ethan's expression was as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. Why should I be the only one trapped here, tormented for so many years, while you can say something so cruel without changing a hair? He took out his phone and threw it down in front of me. Pointing at his chest, his tone almost a roar, "Take a good look at the dirty things you did. You worked yourself nearly to death for the company, and you slept with someone else for that stinking little pile of money. Wendy, ask yourself, can you live with what you've done to me?" I picked up the phone from the floor in silence. The screen was playing a video of me lying on a bed while someone tore at my clothes. The clip lasted only 10 odd seconds, but it caught both my face and the other person's face clearly. The man on top of me was someone both Ethan and I knew well. In an instant, every question found its answer. No wonder over the years he seemed to become a different person overnight. No wonder, even knowing it would infuriate me, he still delighted in bringing his lovers home. It turned out all of this had been an elaborate, long-running revenge aimed at me. My eyes were red, I looked up in utter disappointment and spoke slowly, word by word, "Ethan, everyone else can call me dirty, but you cannot." 7 years ago. It was the peak of our company's growth. Ethan learned that the head of the Zhou family had died. He wanted to take advantage of the Zhou family's turmoil, use the opportunity to undermine them from within, and seize everything that rightfully belonged to him. To obtain the working capital needed to feed his ambitions, he hid from me and signed a massive earn-out/agreement with a company that had previously expressed interest in acquiring us. Taking flesh from the jaws of capital is no less than snatching food from a tiger's mouth. Not until we suffered major losses for 2 consecutive quarters, and our suppliers coincidentally began to experience a string of problems, did Ethan finally come to his senses and confess to me that he had fallen into a trap the other side had laid in advance. When I learned the truth, the feeling I had could hardly be overstated. I might as well call it utter desolation. That night I even looked up which building to jump from to ensure immediate death. But after the breakdown, I still gritted my teeth and chose to hold on. Ethan was still so young, I couldn't stand by and watch him go to prison. Just when we were overwhelmed and at our wits' end, nobody expected what happened next. The situation took a turn. A woman named Sophie approached me and asked if I was interested in collaborating on a setup. From what she told me, she was the wife of the owner of that company. Sophie's goal was simple. If her husband wanted to elevate his mistress, she wouldn't just throw him out, she intended to make sure the other woman didn't get a single cent. If I agreed to cooperate with her, once it was over not only would the agreement be voided, she would also supply evidence of the boss's tax evasion and smuggling, leaving him with no way to recover. I accepted with almost no hesitation. Even though she still urged me to think it over carefully. At the time, she held a cigarette between her fingers and spoke slowly, "Miss Wendy, as someone who's been through it, I have to warn you, even if my husband and I married young and have come this far, men are the most fragile when put to the test. You're sacrificing so much for Mr. Ethan now, I don't think it will be worth it." I said, "He will believe me." I believed Ethan wouldn't doubt my character lightly, even if one day he saw the footage, he would at least be willing to hear my explanation. Sophie didn't try to persuade me after that, she only left one meaningful sentence. "Then leave some evidence behind, you might find it useful one day." No one expected that her words would prove prophetic. I opened the encrypted folder on my phone and sent all of Sophie's chat logs and the videos from back then. When I spoke again, my voice was worn out. Ethan, I don't know who sent you that clip, but if you see the full version you'll understand. Just at the moment the second button of my blouse came undone, the police had already burst in. Ethan stared at the screen, his pupils trembling violently. I watched his face grow gradually pale and sighed softly. No matter what you speculate, the facts before us have already proven that back then, between that person and me, absolutely nothing happened. A grating ring of the phone cut through the air. It was Vivian calling. I pressed the answer button as I turned and walked toward the door. Understood, Mississippi. I'm driving over right now, I'll be there in 10 minutes, guaranteed. Ethan lunged forward, trying to stop me. Wendy, you're not allowed to leave. His face was written with unwillingness. Why didn't you tell me this directly? If you had told me sooner, we wouldn't have ended up like this. That's because I really loved you back then. I stopped, looking at him with eyes full of disgust. Because I loved you, I didn't feel all that wronged. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel guilty. From my perspective, I simply happened to do the right thing at a moment when I had no other choice, that's all there was to it. Instead of accusing me, you should reflect on why you didn't come to me to verify the video the moment you received it, and why you chose to let your anger run wild and use despicable means to punish me for 6 whole years. Ethan, you're the one who turned things into this mess with your own hands. Having said that, I shoved him hard and walked away without looking back. Behind him, Ethan tumbled down and sat on the ground in a sorry heap. His gaze was unfocused, as if all his strength had drained away. Vivian's birthday finally arrived. A couple of days earlier she'd just kicked out a boyfriend she'd dated for 3 years. She'd always been fickle, managing a steady 3-year relationship was already her limit. This time, to celebrate being single again, she'd invited a dozen male models over for a party. While we were cutting the cake, I told her about Ethan misunderstanding me. Vivian, furious, called him an idiot for half an hour on the spot. After she finished venting, she downed a mouthful of alcohol, then, still unconvinced, asked, if he fell to his knees crying, slapping himself while begging you to forgive him, would you, on a whim, say yes? I shook my head with a smile. Don't worry, I'll handle it the same way you would. Just now, her little boyfriend suddenly showed up. The moment they met he burst into tears, insisting he'd been wronged and clinging to her leg begging to get back together. Before he could finish, Vivian grabbed his freshly permed curls and slapped him left and right. You wronged? The cameras caught you making out with her, how dare you say she was a house cleaner? I used to turn a blind eye because your place was decent enough, but look at you, daring to shove people into my room and rub my face in it. Today was supposed to be my birthday and you come to jinx it and add insult to injury. If I don't kick your ass good and proper, I don't deserve the surname Sue. Watching my little boyfriend hunching and crawling across the floor, I silently thought to myself, whoever you mess with, don't mess with a woman who's idolized Sue Winchung since she was 3. After I gave my approving reply, Vivian relaxed and waved her hand, calling over a few male models to pop some champagne. As a seasoned queen of the scene, Vivian's taste was undeniably authoritative. With a single look, those models, handsome enough to be celebrities, immediately took the hint, they bit their lips, poured champagne over themselves, and started gyrating like angels. Beauty leads people astray. Vivian and I were soon plastered drunk. It wasn't until the next evening that the ruckus finally ended and we drove home. Seeing that figure crouched in the doorway, I frowned immediately. I was about to step around and open the door when Ethan, roused by the sound of my footsteps, suddenly stood up. You're finally back. He looked at me with delight and, like someone presenting a treasure, offered the box in his hands. Look, I found that lost amethyst, although the clasp is missing a piece, I've already had someone repair it. I easily dodged that hand, which froze awkwardly in midair. Ethan, now that we're all 30, stop pulling that 25-year-old ardent act. I looked at him with a blank expression. Whatever your reasons for coming here today, I'll say it again, my decision about the divorce won't change for anything. Wendy, please don't treat me like this, Ethan swayed, his face pained. Yes, the video was my fault, I'm the one who wronged you. Hit me, okay? Beat me like you used to, do whatever you want, this time I absolutely won't fight back. His voice choked. Anyway, I'm begging you to give me a chance to make it up to you, please, just forgive me. Spare me the crap, a scumbag like you doesn't get to talk about forgiveness. I couldn't hold back any longer. I grabbed my bag and swung it with all my might at his head. When you first cheated, I was so hurt I couldn't sleep all night. I relied on sleeping pills just to force myself to close my eyes for 2 hours. I spent every day agonizing over what I'd done wrong that made you go to another woman for excitement. Later you kept bringing your lovers home again and again. I couldn't stand that I kept losing control and getting physical with you. I went to a psychiatrist and discovered I have bipolar disorder. Over the years my repressed emotions turned into illness. I've had 3 cyst removal surgeries on my breasts alone. The worst time, the doctor said if they'd found it 2 days later it would have developed into cancer. I stopped moving and sneered coldly, Ethan, this is all your fault. Where do you get the nerve to ask me to forgive you? Ethan clutched his chest and leaned against the wall, his lips trembling violently. I'm sorry, Wendy, I'm sorry. He stared hard at the scar on my wrist, tears streaming down his cheeks. Believe me, I never meant to hurt you like this. I really didn't know about these things. You of course wouldn't know, because at those times you were busy sleeping with other people. I looked at him quietly. Ethan, do you know? Compared to you not believing that I humbled myself for you, I'd honestly rather you had just cheated from the start. I adjusted my breathing, speaking slowly, but when I was already completely dead inside, you cruelly told me that all this nauseating mess was because of a misunderstanding. Your attempts to cover up your guilty conscience really make me feel like all the years I gave were nothing but a total joke. Ethan's shoulders trembled, his mouth opened as if he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. After so many years together, he knew perfectly well that when I said this, I truly wouldn't give him any more chances. I reached out and pushed him aside, then unlocked it with my fingerprint. Ethan, if you still have any manhood left, just sign the divorce papers quietly. Otherwise, I will really despise you. I would no longer try to solve our problems with violence. Even the thought of touching him again made me reflexively feel sick. The door closed heavily. I gave him no more chances to plead. Not until the next morning did that figure finally leave for good. Cigarette butts were scattered at the entrance. But it was obvious Ethan hadn't given up so easily. For the entire week that followed, no matter wind or rain, whenever I left the house he unfailingly stood beneath the streetlight smoking. It was as if silently watching me like that was a particular form of penance. One night around 2 in the morning I woke thirsty and went to drink, and passing the living room balcony I found he was still downstairs. That gaunt silhouette tilted its head up toward me, a faint orange ember pinched between its fingers. I didn't know what meaning, if any, his behavior held. More importantly, his gaze had already started to trouble my life. I preferred not to see it at all, so I wouldn't even draw back the balcony blackout curtains. But I wasn't without recourse. I took a photo and sent it to Tina. Hurry over and take away the trash, I don't want. I believe she couldn't have felt absolutely nothing for Ethan. But what allowed her to lie in wait and persist for so long was, more certainly, a desire for money. Having finally waited for a chance to rise, she wouldn't let it slip away easily. Sure enough, in less than half an hour a sultry, sizzling figure appeared downstairs. I don't know what she did, but I watched Ethan go from shouting at her to frozen in place, weakened and utterly teased. In the end, he slammed her against the front of the car. Letting go, he drove into her again and again. The next day, the trending searches exploded. High-definition, up-close photos of Ethan and Tina, wrapped and intoxicated, dominated every news front page. Thirsty Canary delivers fast food across 1,000 miles, domineering CEO in an alley leaves his wife for a new lover. Overnight, Ethan was ruined. The Zhou family, believing he had tarnished their name, removed him completely from the genealogy. Tina, because of improper conduct, was also expelled from the company and blacklisted across the entire industry. Even on the day we went to finalize the divorce, Ethan kept babbling, explaining that he truly hadn't meant to touch her. I took the thin booklet from the staff, walking out while nodding. I know. I looked at him and smiled, saying, because all of this was my design. I had already lined up the reporter. The love potion ad was something I arranged to have sent to Tina's phone. Tina wanted to squeeze me out and take my place, but I was determined Ethan would walk away with nothing, not a single cent. Go with the flow, use the plot against itself. That, too, was the priceless lesson Sophie once passed on to me. Snowflakes began to drift down in loose clusters. Ethan stopped in his tracks. The light in his eyes vanished in an instant. Wendy, how could you do this to me? He stared at me, stunned, a tear slipping from the corner of his eye. Do you know? Yesterday I was diagnosed with liver cancer. The doctor said it's advanced. Oh, really? I stared at his blood-drained face and sincerely offered my blessing. That's wonderful, hurry up and die. Ethan panted heavily, his chest heaving. Why? He stared at me, murmuring, I'm practically dead already, and you still won't forgive me. What, why? Wendy is so beautiful, Uncle Ethan, don't you see how rundown you look now? Do you think you're worthy of her? A tall young man about 1.9 meters stepped forward, looking down at Ethan. Holding a bouquet of roses, he coquettishly teased me, Sister, you promised to go to the movies with me. Let's ignore this old man, okay? I smiled and said okay. The snow in the sky grew heavier. I took his hand, ignoring the look of devastation on Ethan's face, and turned to get into the car. The moment the car started, wind and snow roared behind us and the sound faded away. I couldn't tell if it was the wind, or that person sobbing. In fact, there were many things left unsaid. For example, Vivian and I started a modeling agency together. That boy was just a newcomer we had recently signed. And for example, the answer to that question. My answer has still not changed to this day. But from the moment I turned away, there was no longer any need to explain or respond to any of it. From now on, Ethan as a person will have nothing to do with me. No attention. No care. Move forward. To completely forget in silence, that, for me, is the most dignified ending to this relationship.